The world of animation is brutal and unforgiving. Sometimes bad shows drag on forever. Other great shows get their plugs pulled away too soon. There are some shows that were so iconic, their cancellation left us with an actual emotional hole in our hearts. A hole that can only be refilled by a comeback. And that's exactly what we're talking about today. We're counting down the top 10 cartoons that deserve a revival. Sometimes they ended before they got to tell their full story. Sometimes they have more stories they can tell. But either way, these shows deserve a comeback. Now remember, this is just a list. It's not the list. If you have a show you think deserves a revival that didn't make it onto the list, throw it down in the comments. If we get enough of them, we might just make a part 2. Anyways, let's get started. Also, spoilers ahead, be warned. Tartakovsky may have had the world's strangest and hardest to spell and pronounce name. I seriously think I screwed it up, I'm sorry if I did. But goddammit, this man can make a cartoon! Not only is he responsible for 2 of Cartoon Network's most iconic series, Dexter's Lab and Samurai Jack, but he also almost got to make a Popeye movie. I mean, it never really made it to the big screen, but still, it would have been really cool. I digress, because we're not talking about any of that. Instead, we're talking about his 3rd cartoon, Sym-Bionic Titan. This show was Gendy's attempt at a giant robot show. Think Evangelion or Gundam. Our heroes are escapees from their war-torn home planet of Galaluna. They seek refuge on Earth in the safe state of Illinois because literally nothing bad has ever happened there. Lance, a knight, is dead set on protecting Luna, the princess of Galaluna, from any harm at all costs. Then there's Octus, their robot whose human form looks like if Baymax had skin. They defend themselves against all of the evil monsters and other threats sent by General Medulla. That's the bad guy here. They all have their own individual alien robot armor. However, when things get really bad, they all fuse together to form Sym-Bionic Titan, a giant fusion of all of them that I guess is more powerful than pretty much like anything ever. We all know fusion is a cheap tactic to make weak gems stronger, but they don't seem like they care. When they're not fighting monsters, they're blending into human society. That means they go to high school just like everyone else. So picture this show as a Degrassi with giant robot fights. A lot of the entertainment comes from their extreme lack of understanding in human culture, despite how much they try to fit into it. Just look at this scene where Octus tries to study.
That's right. Roll it around. Boys be dropping to the ground, worshiping you at your feet. They be calling, let it loose. Come on, baby, rock the caboose.
I have no idea how this made it past the censors. The show follows the 3 trying to make it through the trials and tribulations of high school while also dealing with the trials and tribulations of giant robot monster fights. As the series went on, the story actually developed. There were some arcs going on here. So we had a show with a great concept, characters, and story, and what happened to it? Nothing. The show aired for a year before getting cancelled. Supposedly, it was due to the show not scoring any merchandising deals, which for an action show is pretty crucial. Toys sell. And without that support, it was costing the network more than it was worth, so it just got canned. You know, this is such a horrible reason to pull the plug, but again, animation is a tough world. That's why it more than ever deserves a revival. The show still has a strong cult fan base, and action shows never really get old. Personally, I think it would do great on Netflix or a smaller streaming platform. Then it could be able to tell the story it needs and get the treatment it deserves. It could be like Voltron. My only problem with the show was the awkward melding of 2D and CGI that isn't aging too well. If it were to come back, hopefully it gets a big enough budget to get full 2D. And it doesn't have to worry about merchandising deals since, you know, Toys R Us, never mind.
Princess!
No, wait!
Are you crazy? You could have died.
The robot analyzed the atmosphere. I am fine.
The 90s were a weird time for adult animation. The world was forever changed by the massive Fox hit that was The Simpsons, but the term adult animation was still new. We didn't have Rick and Morty or even Family Guy yet, but we did have The Critic. Created by Simpsons alumni, this sarcastic sitcom followed the life of professional movie critic Jay Sherman. Jay is a sour, divorced, balding man living in New York City. This is the pre-internet days, so he's a movie critic on television. Remember when that was a thing? I don't, yeah. Anyways, he usually hates everything. He's a cynic at heart. He's both self-loathing and strangely proud. It's a weird mix for his character, but I have to admit I like it. Nothing ever seems to go right for Jay. For instance, a hot actress falls in love with him, but it turns out it was only an act to get a good movie review. What makes The Critic stand out is its clever writing. The series is seriously funny, and since it's Simpsons alumni, you know that writing is top-notch. Quick tangent, Jim cameoed on an episode of The Simpsons as a sort of promotion, I assume, but since The Simpsons has so many episodes, this is just kind of buried in there. The show was strongest when it did its great movie parodies. Sure, they may seem dated today, but they're still funny, and that's a huge reason why it deserves deserves a reboot. Look at where we're at now. There's tons of online movie critics, more now than ever. And movie parodies are huge. This is a chance to comment on a whole new generation of critics. I mean, imagine Jay Sherman with a nostalgia critic outfit. I mean, I can't imagine a better cartoon. It's sad to say, but I think the critic was just ahead of its time.
Hey, mister, why does your car say King Dork?
I bought it from King Dorkenheiser of Finland.
I thought Finland was a constitutional democracy.
Just park the car.
They were the kids next door and they were hecking sick. They had a treehouse on the moon, they always had ice cream on command, and they even found a way to weaponize mustard, the angriest of all the condiments. But most importantly, it had 6 successful seasons on the air, becoming one of the network's most iconic shows. And it's only aged well, like a fine wine, getting better the older we all collectively get, till one day we die. It was lucky enough to have its own planned ending, a luxury only some shows seem to get. That means towards the end of the series, we actually had a little story going on in the episodes. It all led up to a big finale where Nigel Uno gets sent into space to join the Galactic Kids Next Door, a mysterious transgalactic organization that I only assume is like Kids Next Door on steroids. Now this was kind of a cliffhanger ending, but I always saw it more as a wrap up to the series with a potential of more stories being told, almost like it was leading us on to the next chapter, one separate from Kids Next Door. I prefer endings like this, ones that let you know that the characters are still doing stuff even if we aren't there to see it. But maybe we can see it! A few years ago, creator Tom Warburton launched his pitch for what Galactic Kids Next Door might look like. He did it all himself online to spread the word and get some buzz going on. He released 2 animatics along with a fake Rainbow Monkeys website that led to secrets and more information on the series. It was really incredible, he even got the old voice actors back. The first animatic, which has now been animated by fans, you can watch that on YouTube, showed an older number 1 with cooler glasses as he debates whether or not he should just destroy the Earth, his home, because of the adult infestation. The clip ends with him seemingly deciding to do it. It was so dark and I loved it. The other clip showed number 3 and number 4 talking to an alien about how they released the previous video, the alien actually turning out to be Lizzie Devine, who was an alien all along. This leads number 3 to actually drop the F-bomb, which this is just incredible. Regardless, she gets cut off by an explosion and guns trying to warn them that they're coming, although we never find out who they are. I mean, it's probably the Galactic Kids Next Door, but hey, you never know. A dark, story-driven continuation of the Kids Next Door series? How could this fail? And with nostalgia-driven revivals at an all-time high, I'm looking at you, Nickelodeon. It seems like this is the best time to drop it. It would at least make for an awesome mini-series, and they brought back Samurai Jack, so... Sadly, this was all the way back in 2015, and as of now, it hasn't been picked up. However, the crew hasn't given up. Warburton himself tweeted a picture recently that he's still interested in making it happen. Maybe with enough fan support, we can convince the network to pick this thing up. But for now, it's just a revival that needs to happen.
It combines the pictographic treatments of Galactic's ancient-based 12... Oh, for the love of...
Now my human disguise is acting up! Who was running the tech department while I was on Earth? Number moron!
Tell me about it!
Holy
She looked better as a plant.
I heard that!
I think it would literally be impossible to count all of the Spider-Man iterations and shows that have been made. I mean, the film series itself has been rebooted twice. There's been 3 iterations of it. And same goes for the television department. There have been tons of Spider-Man cartoons, from the lovably cheesy 60s iteration to the Drake Bell era. Side note, tangent really quick, I love Drake Bell's performance. I actually think he's a really great Peter Parker, but I digress. No matter how many different iterations there were of the series, fans can all agree that the cream of the crop, the best of them all, was 2008's Spectacular Spider-Man. Although this series only ran for a year, it was more than enough time for this show to prove itself. First of all, Peter's in high school, which is always a strong start. The series takes place the school year after he got his powers, so he's relatively new at the whole thing. Bless this show for not showing the spider bite Uncle Ben death again. Like, how many times could we stand to see that? He's friends with Gwen and Harry. They're like his little social outcast group. The series is so great though because of its developing plot and ongoing mystery of who the Green Goblin really is. I won't spoil the whole series for you, but if you haven't seen it, please do. It's totally worth a watch. So why does it deserve a revival? Well, for one, it was short-lived. I mean, only 2 seasons is not enough for a show this good. But second of all, it ended on the biggest cliffhanger ever. Like, are you serious? Okay, spoilers ahead, just so you know what I'm talking about. At the end of the series, Harry's dad, Mr. Osborn, ends up dying in this big ending fight. It's all sad for Harry, who has to deal with the death of his father. That's heavy shit, no funny. But the last scene of the series shows his father still alive and disguised getting on a plane. He's still out there. Will we ever know? I don't know. But maybe if we get a reboot? Yeah? With the new Spider-Man Homecoming and general revamping of the character, it might seem like our chances are lower than ever of bringing back an older property. I'm sure they'd rather make a Spider-Man Homecoming series to tie into the new brand. But despite it all, at least the series gave us 2 seasons of fun and the best theme song ever. Some shows get to have an ending, some shows get cancelled out of the blue, and some shows get so incredibly screwed over by the network that it's almost completely and totally unbelievable. Such is the case with Harvey Beaks, the Nickelodeon cartoon from Chowder creator C.H. Greenblatt. Now, when I first heard about this show, I was beyond hype. I mean, C.H. Greenblatt is an incredible creator, I love Chowder, and I knew it had to be good. And I was so right. Harvey Beaks is an incredibly well-made, adorable little show about a little blue bird scared of everything, and his 2 best friends, Fee and Foo, who fear nothing. Together, they go on adventures in their small wooden town, as Harvey learns to step out of his comfort zone a little at a time. What I love about the show is that it also made an effort to flesh out and develop its side characters and the members of the town they live in. We got to know all of the other kids, all of the people in his town, and Harvey's parents extremely well. We also got character development, as we see the birth of Harvey's little sister. The show had good lessons and lovable characters, and a great message. It was as sweet as it was funny. And then Nickelodeon canceled it. Yep. The worst part about this situation isn't the cancellation itself. I mean, the show still managed to have a great ending and wrap up the show. The problem was the mistreatment by the network. C.H. Greenblatt found out the show was canceled via a Nickelodeon Twitter post, and it was all downhill from there, as episodes weren't advertised well, some were just shoved online. Nickelodeon is notorious for doing this with their other shows like Korra. It's just bad. Harvey Beaks still had so many stories to tell. It doesn't just need a revival, it literally deserves one, and preferably a better network.
What's that behind you?
Trees, they're just trees, Jeremy. Please stay focused.
In the world of adult animated sitcoms, we're usually subjected to yet another Seth MacFarlane cartoon or something that looks like it's trying to be a Seth MacFarlane cartoon. But on Adult Swim, that's where great adult animation thrives. It gave us Rick and Morty, Venture Bros, and even earlier, Mission Hill. The show followed the lives of chill slacker 20-year-olds living in Mission Hill, California, living the classic 20s lifestyle, working a lame 9-to-5 for the man, going to parties and consuming alcohol, eating bad, and he loves it all. But when his nerdy little brother Kevin moves in with him, his world gets turned upside down. Before anyone says anything, yes, Kevin is voiced by Scott Menville, who also voices Robin.
Titans, go!
I've never lived with a girl before, but I assure you, I am a perfect gentleman.
Is it weird to hear? Yes. Do you eventually get over it? I never really did. The premise sounds sitcomish, but that's because it is. However, Mission Hill shines in being sarcastic, clever, and more chill and low-key than a lot of shows like American Dad that has this high-paced machine gun comedy.
Look at that bulge. Best part of waking up is bulgers in your cup. Now go wag that mama all over school, cool guy.
Those are some of my cartoons, and those are some designs for an animated TV series I was thinking about.
Oh God, not another animated series.
I know. It's like everyone and their brother has one now.
It has a great aesthetic too, if you're into that. It does a great job showing the real life of a 20-something in the early 2000s. But imagine all the episodes they can make if they were set in, say, 2018. I feel like the show's overall tone is something missing from most adult animation now. And since we only got 13 episodes, this cult classic could really use a revival.
Ow, what happened to the couch?
We moved it over there last week, remember?
Oh, yeah.
What is the best cartoon of all time ever made? Avatar: The Last Airbender. I don't care what anyone says, they're wrong. It's just the best. It had an amazing 3 seasons, and it wrapped up. It ended when it should have. Then we got Korra, another incredible cartoon, and I think one of the best as well. Although it got a lot more criticism than the last, and it wasn't nearly as good, it still had a great run, and I loved the show. And so I say, what's stopping them from doing it again? The world of Avatar is massive. The lore is immense. We've already established time gaps can work for a reboot, and the idea of the Avatar is so perfect since they're always going to be a new Avatar reborn again and again. I feel like another reboot of the franchise just makes sense. Maybe it's set way in the future, maybe in the past, but there's so many stories to tell here. There's so many possibilities. I just want to see more of this incredible world. Now I know you might be sitting in your chair thinking I'm crazy, but you cannot deny the amount of story potential the world of Avatar has. They could totally pull a Star Wars thing where they created a whole movie franchise from 3 movies. Not that that always works out, but I believe in the Avatar team. Now I know this is probably just a pipe dream. Most, if not all, of the Avatar team went on to other things, be it Voltron or even their own series, but I believe in this dream, so damn it, it's going on the list.
The world's so different now.
And it's gonna be even more different.
we'll rebuild it together. Code Lyoko is just cool. Play the theme song. I dare you. Play it anywhere near me and I will scream from the top of my lungs and sing along. The series was like a French anime. It was just so obviously overdubbed.
Don't look so gloomy, Ulrich. Is it because of Millie? You could have said yes. You know, me and prom.
The episodes followed a strict formula, and a big chunk of each episode was just them running to the Lyoko lab, but damn it, this show was so cool! The idea of a giant supercomputer sending people to a virtual world where they can defeat an evil virus hell-bent on destroying humanity just sounds so cool as a plot. And before you say anything, I know the series has a live-action revival, but I don't like it. It's live-action, and it's dead to me. Plus, it's very much not a cartoon, and I am a cartoon, so I'm not allowed to talk about it. Now, okay, the show did have a good ending. They defeated Xanax and shut down the computer and moved on with their lives. That's why I envisioned it being more of a reimagining of the series. Still the same, but new, like a Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood type thing. It would get a whole new generation of kids into the series, and we would all have more Lyoko. It's a win-win. I'm also not opposed to taking the whole years later approach for them as adults, but that sounds too fanfiction-y for my taste. I just want this show back.
You four look like you're in a hurry.
Well, we've got a water polo practice, yeah. Right now, too.
Yeah, and we're late, too. We've got practice in the gym with Jim.
Does anyone remember Wayside School? I feel like this show is so slept on. This adaptation of Louis Satcher's goofy book series about a school accidentally built 31 stories tall is just so funny. Literally, not a single episode doesn't make me crack up. Focuses on Mrs. Jules and her class as crazy things happen at the school. Most of the comedy comes from the outsider character Todd being confused and appalled, while everyone else in the school sees it as normal. But the other comedy comes in just how funny and well thought out it is. I'm not over exaggerating. The writing is some of the sharpest I've ever seen. More so than a lot of primetime TV shows, if you can believe it. Just for an example, in one episode, their principal, named Principal Kidswatter, which is great, decides to install a gazebo in the school. Not knowing exactly what it is, he ends up clearing out the whole schoolyard in preparation for what is ultimately a tiny little building. Like, who thinks of that? On top of that, the amount of small reoccurring gags and smart visual humor make Wayside School virtually unmatched in terms of making me laugh. I definitely enjoyed as much now as I did when I first saw it. Now, I know the show is controversial, most people have a problem with how different it is from the books, but seeing someone who has read them all and seen the series, it's best to simply just treat them as two separate things. Enjoy them together, but separate if that makes sense. They're both good in different ways. Despite all of the immense praise I'm throwing at it, Wayside School only lasted 2 seasons. It just could have gone longer in my opinion. The series is timeless, so to reboot it now, say maybe as a Netflix show or something, wouldn't be hard at all. It honestly just deserves more love. If you haven't seen the show, watch them literally all on YouTube. They're all there. Then come back and tell me if I'm giving it too much praise. Maybe I'm crazy.
Mrs. Jules? Silly me, I forgot my calculator for spelling class.
This one might be obvious, but if any show deserves a revival, it's Clone High. This comedy takes a jab at teen shows like Dawson's Creek or Degrassi, except instead of normal high schoolers, the kids are all clones of famous historical figures. It's as crazy as it sounds. JFK, Abraham Lincoln, Joan of Arc, they have them all. But the only thing they share with their historical counterparts is their DNA. They're just normal teens, as the show likes to point out a lot, living out normal teenage drama, or crazy teenager TV drama. I mean, it's all the same thing. This is just one of the funniest cartoons ever made, hands down. Seriously, if you haven't seen it, please watch it. It's all on YouTube too. It perfectly parodies teen shows of that time, and honestly, it's some of the smartest writing I've seen since The Simpsons. The show was popular enough, but ultimately met its demise when people began protesting at the show's portrayal of Gandhi. In the show, he was this ADHD, hyper crazy, inappropriate, wisecracking clown, the exact opposite of the real comedy. That was the joke. But people didn't really find it that funny, and soon the backlash got so bad, they canceled the show. The show's creators, Phil Lord and Chris Miller, have gone on to bigger and better things, like the Lego Movie, for instance, or 21 Jump Street. And all of their work is just as good, but the show still deserves a revival. 1, because of how it went out, and 2, because it ended on a cliffhanger. Spoilers ahead, I'm gonna be really mad in this next part. The last episode had all the characters frozen in a meat locker after the evil government organization who created them came back to take them away and use them for bad government stuff. After that, we don't know. The show never saw the light of day again. Talk about disappointing, especially when you spend a whole season falling in love with these characters. So I think more than anything, Clone High deserves a revival. We just need more episodes of this show. It went out too soon. And the creators are actually down this time, with Lord and Miller often joking their whole careers were just an attempt to bring back Clone High. And if that isn't dedication, guys, I don't know what is.
Stay away from Abe of Ark, or you'll pay.
Pay what?
Okay, hadn't thought that far.
No matter how sad the ending of a show is, you have to accept that eventually, no matter what, all things come to an end. And although it's not always fair, it's honestly just how it is sometimes. But it's always fun to fantasize and think about shows that would definitely deserve a revival. But as always, guys, I want to know what you think. Do you agree with this list? Do you not? Let us know in those comments down below. Tweet to me at RetroNemo, or tweet to us at Roundtable Vids with our Instagram and Facebook under the same name. If you can't get enough of the Roundtable, you should check out our Patreon, where you can get exclusive access to scripts and avatars, have your name featured at the end of the video like all these beautiful people here, and have a shout out at the end of the month. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to give it a like, share it, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay in the loop with all things animation. Guys, I'm RetroNemo, this was a top 10, and I'll see you next time. Peace.